I'm coming to you with a new tutorial on how to make just a basic card. This one here is the one I'm going to be making today. Let me just show you. Yesterday I got a few stamps from somebody online and picked these up from them, cleaned them up. Don't worry, they're COVID free. But I picked these up from a friend and thought, you know, this would be a perfect opportunity to show you how to take just basic stamps and stamp pads and paper and make a card like this one, like I said we were going to do today. This video might run a little long, and I'm sorry if things get out of focus. I'm still learning how to make videos. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how to make this card here. So what you're going to need for this is you're going to need a piece of 5.5 by 8.5 paper. You're going to take this paper and you're going to fold it in half like this. Okay, this is going to be our card base. Okay, so you need one of those. Okay, you're going to need one piece of paper in this cream color, same color as your base. That's going to be 5.5 by 4.25. You're going to need the same thing in a decorative paper. This one is the one I used here on the front of the card. You can just choose whatever paper you want to use. This is the one I picked. So this one here is also 5.5 by 4.25. And then you're going to need two pieces of paper cut at 5.5 by 4.25 in a darker color. Okay, this is the color here and the color inside. So you're going to need that. So let's go ahead and start with that. Let me go ahead and take these off real quick. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to take one of these pieces of paper that are cut at the smaller size. Okay, you're going to take a cutter and you're going to take the cutter and you're going to take one of your pieces of paper and you're going to cut it, you know, just like 1/8 of an inch, maybe even less, just a slight bit off on each side, top and side. Okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to end up taking this brown piece of paper and we're going to be putting it onto the card base. So basically you're going to have just a nice little thin border all the way around. Okay, so you're going to do that. Next, you're going to go ahead and you're going to take, this is something that's optional. This is what I did on the card I'd made though. Some distress ink. This is regular Distress Oxide ink that you can get at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. You can get them online as well. It doesn't have to be this particular Distress ink. You can use any brown ink that you have. And what you're going to do is, in my case, I have this dauber here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub it into the ink. I'm going to take the brown piece of card and I'm going to go ahead and just lightly decorate the edges, brush it onto the edges. You do not need to have one of these to do this. You can just take your actual stamp pad itself and just gently rub it alongside the paper as well. It works with any kind of stamp pad. Anything that you can get up here and brush onto the edges of the brown paper. It's just something I've been using and like. So I just take it on this little dauber and I just go around the edges. This it sort of shadows it, so that way when you put it on the paper you get sort of a nice cleaned up edge. I'll go ahead and trim this off real quick. Here's a little hangy off there. Okay, once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and take your decorative paper that you cut down earlier and you're going to sort of place it towards the bottom third of the paper. Okay, you see how I've sort of just placed it here. Once you've done that, you sort of just eyeball it, and I take a pencil and I sort of mark where the edge is. I take my paper cutter, go right where the mark is, and trim that off. Now you're going to save this bigger piece because you're going to be using this possibly later. So just set it aside because it's still a good piece. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to take this piece here. Also take your brown dauber and you're going to go around the edges of this. It just makes it look more finished this way. And I'm using brown just because it's the color theme that I've got going here. You can use other colors if you decide you want to do something else. Okay. Let me go ahead. I'm going to put our completed card here so you can sort of see how we're going to do this, okay? So we're going to take this piece here. And you're going to go ahead, and in my case, I'm going to use this thing here. It's called a tape gun. This takes a little bit of practice. Basically, it has double-sided tape on here. You're going to flip the piece of paper over, and you're going to put the double-sided tape on the back. If you do not have a tape gun, you can use just regular glue. Put regular glue on it and use the glue. Same thing. Just basically, you're going to put down some double-sided adhesive on here or some glue. And you're going to sort of line it up at the bottom so it looks straight. And you're going to go ahead and stick that down, okay? So already we have this part here. Now you can see it has a little bit of a hangover on the edge there. Hangover, that's funny. Okay, you're going to go ahead and just cut off the extra right up along the other one there. Okay. When you flip it back over, you might need to re-ink the edges a little bit. It's up to you. Okay, so this is what we have so far. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make this part here. This is the ribbon, and I'm going to make a faux bow. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this ribbon. You can use any kind of ribbon. This just adds texture and interest to the card. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and take this and squirt a little bit of glue on the ribbon. In my case, I'm going to use the big tape runner. You're going to put it down. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go ahead and put double-sided adhesive all over my ribbon here, if I can go in a straight line. Okay. And I actually have like 2 little pieces of ribbon. So you just need enough ribbon to lay down right here. And we're basically going to make like a little distinct line here between the plain paper and the pattern paper. Now you can see I have all this extra here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick that up, and I'm just going to trim off right about here. Let's see, we're using my scissors there. Okay, same thing on this side. And you're going to flip the card over. And because I have double-sided tape, I can go ahead and just take this and flip it over, and it will stick down. If you were to use glue, you would just put a little bit of glue here. Same thing, just like that, okay? So now you've got the main line here. Now we're going to make the faux bow. This is just basically to give it more texture and dimension and a little bit more interest. But basically you're going to take this other piece of ribbon. You're going to sort of just fold it over, make a little bit of a fake bow here, trim it off. Okay. Once you've got the length you want here, you're going to go ahead and use glue and put glue on one end and glue on another end. I'm going to use the tape because I like the tape better. It seems faster to me. But the glue is better. It gives you more wiggle room. It gives you more time to adjust things if you need to. So glue is good for beginners. Okay. So you're going to go ahead and take this part that has the adhesive on it, fold it over halfway, and squish it down. Okay. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. You're going to put either a little dot of glue or a little dot of double-sided adhesive and stick it down. Same thing. Fold it over. So there you go. Now you can go ahead and take some glue, put the glue on here, or use a double-sided tape. You could use pop dots even. And you put some down, and then you sort of figure out where you want your bow to be. Okay. So I'm going to have mine right here. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter just as long as it looks dimensional for your faux bow. Next, you're going to go ahead and take your stamp set that you have, and you're going to take off the pieces that you want to use. In my case, I'm using this one, this sentiment, I like you a latte. And I think I'm also using this one, you're the cream in my coffee. And I also have a little bean here as well. And I just put these things on clear acrylic blocks. Okay, you just slap them on there and you're ready to go. All right. Next, we're going to go ahead and take an ink called Versamark ink. This ink, pardon the ugliness of my pad here, but it still works regardless of how ugly it looks. On this pad is a embossing liquid. Okay, so when you touch it, it's sort of sticky and kind of like honey. It's kind of sticky like that. Okay, it's clear. So what you would do is you would take your stamp, you would stamp it into the pad. Now it's going to be clear, so you're not going to see anything on there. Like if you were to use black ink, you would see black on here from the black ink. But this is a clear ink, sticky ink that's going to be on there. Okay, you're just basically getting it nice and juiced up. Okay, you're going to put the lid back on and set this aside. What we're going to do is we're going to take this little pouch thing. This pouch has powder in it, kind of like a cornstarch or baby powder. And this is used when you're doing embossing. What this does is this gets the oils from your fingers off of the card. And it also prevents static, because when you use these clear stamps, they sometimes have a little bit of static on them, or your fingers get oils and they get stuck on the paper. So by taking this little embossing buddy filled with this powder and rubbing it around, it helps get rid of the oils and any of the static on the paper. So now that you have your Versamark ink on here, you're going to go ahead and figure out where you want it, line it up, press down, just like you would for a regular stamp. Okay. Now when you pull it up, you won't be able to see anything there. Unless you hold it just so in the light, then you might be able to see a little watermark type thing there. What we're going to do now is we're going to take this. I'm going to put down an extra piece of paper here. We're going to take some gold detail embossing powder. You can buy this over at Michael's or any craft store. They come in all different colors. So we're going to do a gold one. It goes well with the stripes in our paper. Okay. We're going to just gently pour it on. And then we're just going to gently pour it off onto the paper below and sort of tap it to get off any extras. Okay. Now you can sort of see it there. If you have any little stray pieces that won't come off, you can take a small paintbrush and just sort of brush aside anything that might get on in the way. Okay. So here I can tell that I've missed the E on latte. So I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit more powder and redo it one more time. Okay, dump it off. Check for any stray bits, because we don't want any stray bits. Okay. We're going to go ahead and take the extra powder that we didn't use, and we're going to go ahead and just sort of funnel it back into our jar. Okay. Put the lid on, because I don't know how many times I've knocked it over. Okay, now you're going to take your heat gun, and you're going to get your heat gun going. It's going to be nice and hot before you apply it. I see a couple little stray bits there, so I'm going to wipe those off. I'm going to go ahead and get it nice and heated. I'm going to emboss this, so it'll be just a second. Okay. And like magic, it comes up turning out gold and raised. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do the next part, which is the coffee cup. So same thing, take your embossing buddy, run it over where you're going to put your stamp. Take your stamp, put it on your block, bring out your Versamark ink. Go ahead and tap it into the Versamark ink and get your stamp nice and juicy. You can get refills to put over this to get it juicy, that's not even a word, to get it stickier. But mine's okay. I just recently did that, so going to go ahead and get that all inked up. Once again, we're going to go ahead and place it where we want it to go. Push down, you know, firm, but you don't need to do CPR on it and break the stamp or hurt yourself. So you're going to go ahead and stamp that down. Again, it's sort of clear. You can't see it unless you hold it just so in the light. You're going to bring out your extra paper. You're going to lay it down. Open up your gold embossing powder. Sprinkle it over. Tap off. Look for any stray bits. Brush off anything that you're worried might get heated and show up. Go ahead and we're going to take this and we're going to funnel it back into our jar. Close the lid. You don't want that all over the place, trust me. It's hard to pick up. Okay. We're going to go ahead and emboss this area again. There you go. See, that didn't take very long, right? Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and take our card base that we folded earlier. We had folded in half. We're going to go ahead and turn this over. If you want to use glue, you're going to go ahead and put glue all around the card. Not a lot because you don't want it oozing out the sides or anything. I'm going to go ahead and use my double-sided tape runner and put some tape on it. Enough to hold it, but you know, you don't have to get all crazy with the tape. Okay. You're going to go ahead and take this. You're going to sort of eyeball roughly where on the card you want it to go so that it has a little bit of a border all the way around. Okay, you're going to go ahead and just push it down. Okay. Now, don't worry if you're doing this and you get little bubbles on the paper. Sometimes that heat gun makes the paper sort of warp. So you just need to sort of bend it. You know, it'll work out just fine. Okay. Push it down. Okay, so there we are. We have the front already done. Okay, so there's the front of our card. Now for the inside, what we're going to do is we're going to open it up. We're going to take our smaller piece of paper, the one that was 5 1/4 by 4 1/4. Yeah. And we're going to go ahead and just sort of place it here. You're going to see that it's sort of a bit longer on both sides, on this side and on the bottom. Take your pencil and you're going to go ahead and just sort of eyeball it, sort of mark a little border right here and down here where you would like this card, this mat to be. Okay, so we're going to take out our cutter. We're going to go ahead and trim this puppy down on the side and also here on the bottom. All right, so that is going to be this section here. This is going to be the brown mat. Next, we're going to take our lighter piece of cardstock. We're going to place it on top of the brown mat. Once again, we're going to take our pencil and just sort of eyeball where it's going to be cut so that you have a little tiny border around each side. Okay. Eyeballing is just the easiest. Giving you exact measurements is harder. So, same thing with this lighter piece. You're going to go ahead and cut where those marks are. Okay, set that aside. Now, once again, we're going to go ahead and take our brown ink on our little dauber, and we're going to go around the edges. Okay. This just gives it more of a finished look, makes it look like you took a little bit more time and effort and put it together and made it coordinate. Same thing with the brown paper. Even though it's brown, it will still add a nice little border to it because once you set it on this lighter card underneath, you can see that it has that edging on it as well. So we're going to do that with both pieces. Okay, all the way around. Now, I don't necessarily do this on every card I ever make. It just depends on the situation, how I want to make it look finished, or if I want to just make it look nice and simple, whatever. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. Now, we're going to go ahead and take this, and we're going to go ahead and put it down here. We're going to use the glue around the edges, or I'm going to use the tape gun. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and flip it over, just like we did with the front. We're going to tape it around the edges. If you're using glue, don't use too much because it will ooze out because you're near the edge. Okay, we're going to go ahead and place that down right towards the middle, sort of centering it. We're going to push it down. Okay. Next, we're going to do the inside here. And you'll see on this one here, the original that I made, we're also going to do some more embossing. So before we glue this down to the darker paper, let's do the embossing on this paper. So if you remember how we did it in the beginning, remember on this page here, on the front page here, you take your image, you run your embossing buddy over the paper to get rid of any fingerprints or static. You take the stamp that you're going to use. In this case, I've got You're the Cream in My Coffee. You stick it on your stamp block. Okay. On this one, you're going to go ahead and take your Versamark ink again. And squish it down. I like to emboss. I think it just adds a nice texture to the card. I can also stamp it without embossing and just do regular black ink, but I think this just adds a little bit more class to it and makes it more textured and raised. So you're going to go ahead and place it where you think you want it to be. Push down. Okay, again, it's clear like we did just before. You're going to bring in your extra scrap of paper, your gold embossing powder. You're going to pour it over where the ink is. And if you don't remember where the ink is, just pour it over the whole dang thing. It won't matter. But you're basically just going to pour the powder over the top and gently pour it off. Okay. As you can see, I got his fingerprint over here on the side, so I didn't get that with my embossing buddy. So I'm going to have to go ahead and wipe off anything that's straying or not where it's supposed to be. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and dump this back in. Funneling it in very carefully and putting the lid back on because spilled embossing powder is no fun. We're going to take our heat gun and we're going to heat that up. Now again, if you wanted to do this and just use regular brown ink or whatever ink you have, you would do the same thing. You would just go ahead and take your ink pad, you would stamp it in there, stamp it onto the paper. This is if you didn't want to do gold embossing, okay? This is just what I happen to do on it. Next, you'll notice on our original, I also have little coffee beans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the stamp off of my stamp sheet, put it onto a block, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and use a brown ink. Distress ink is not good for stamping. Distress ink is better for coloring something in or for edging the edge of a piece of paper, for doing distress effects. This particular one here, I didn't want that because it comes out really icky looking. It doesn't look great when you're stamping. So keep that in mind. What I'm going to use is my Memento ink drop, and this one is a little bit more permanent and it's better for stamping. So I'm going to go ahead and take my little stamp pad and my stamp, press it on. Okay, you can see the color on the ink pad there, on the stamp there. You're going to go ahead and just decide where you want to place these little coffee beans. I think I decided I liked it like this and here. And then one more over here. Do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. Originally, I was thinking about taking this and doing little brown stamps all over the front of the card, but then I decided that might be too busy, and I wanted a more clean and simple look. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, we're not going to emboss those, okay? We're just going to leave them the way they are. So now we've got that section done. We're going to go ahead and we're going to open up our card. Flip this over, either with glue or with double-sided tape. We're going to go ahead and put some adhesive on it. And we're going to go ahead and place it down here on the center of our card. Okay. There you go. That's the inside. Now, in my desk here, I have this mat that I use, and sometimes I don't clean it off very well, so sometimes I get little dirty bits here. So I just take this eraser that I have. It's a sand eraser. It's used for colored pencils, but it also works on regular paper too. I have these little specks here of something. I'm just going to go ahead and rub them off with my sand eraser. That makes it nice and clean in here, because cream and white cardstock is really hard to keep nice and perfect. So I just like to sort of clean it up. And there you go. One card from start to finish. You can use this same design with different paper colors, with different stamp pads, like or different stamps. Like I could use this one and put that here instead. I could use different papers. You could use different colored bows. You could use different kinds of fibers if you wanted to put something around here. What I suggest doing is going on Pinterest and looking at card layouts, and you'll be able to find all different kinds of layouts and things you can do with your stamps to make different kinds of cards. So it just depends on what you're interested in doing. Don't be afraid to just sort of experiment around. If it's something that doesn't look great, go ahead and chuck it and start over. There's always a way to save it. You can always put something over the top to cover it up. Like if I messed up on this and I didn't do a very good job on this and I thought it was awful, I could go ahead and take that stamp it on another piece of paper, emboss it, and cut it out and put it on top. So you can cover up mistakes too. But that's just the basics. There's a lot of other, tips and tricks that you can do along the way. But go ahead and take your stamps and your paper and just sort of play around with it. Realize it may not be perfect at first, but the more you practice, the more you'll be able to get it. So I hope you give this card a try. If you have any questions about how to do this technique, go ahead and message me or send me a note. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Bye.